So before I get started with my video, I just want to give a thank you to Fuzz the Fair for sending me the resolution articles that I'm going to discuss in this video. I also want to thank Anthony Reyes for introducing me to Caleb Maupin, of which I've learned a lot from in a short amount of time that I've been following him. And I'm also going to discuss some of his findings in this video and how it connects to what I'm going to talk about here. So if you want to interact with me more and send me some articles and I can make videos about them, join my Discord. I have a really fun community, and the whole purpose of this channel and my Discord is for me and you all to grow together, and so we can be more informed. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you find it really informative. Welcome everybody. Franco here from Frank Analysis. I'm here to talk to you guys about how we need to gear up for the upcoming censorship that's coming our way. It looks like Joe Biden is going to be our president. I know that Donald Trump is trying to take his case to the Supreme Court to try to retain power as president, but it looks like, from what I've been reading, that Joe Biden is the preferred candidate to the intelligence officials and to the establishment. I talked about in my previous video how he was endorsed by the Bush administration, how the Bush administration was able to steal the election from Al Gore before. So it's likely that there is some connection there with the Bush administration, the corporations and multinationals associated with the Bush administration, the Clinton administration, the Obama administration, all helping out Joe Biden because he is a more competent person to carry out U.S. imperialism than Donald Trump. Now, we've already been seeing a lot of censorship that's been going on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. We've seen outlets that are associated with Russia, like RT, or with China or with Iran, are being labeled as foreign media, or they label it as like Russian affiliated media, China affiliated media. They also do that on YouTube. Like when you click on an RT video, they say that RT is funded by Russia, the Russian government. Ben Norton put out a video a couple months ago talking about how when Twitter started labeling these outlets as Russian affiliated media or Iran affiliated media, they don't do that for outlets like the BBC and label it UK state media. They don't do it for the US either. They don't call it US state media or US corporate media, because that's what it is. It's corporately owned by a U.S. corporation. Also, many independent YouTubers have already made videos about how their channels get suppressed on YouTube by the algorithm in favor of these corporate channels. So I'm going to read to you some articles that I read, as well as some resolutions that were introduced in the House that are associated with censorship. So first, I'm going to start out with this article here. This is called "What Can Silicon Valley Expect from Joe Biden?" So I just want to read this one part of the article here. The president-elect has hired both Jessica Hertz, former Associate General Counsel at Facebook, and Cynthia Hogan, former Apple Vice President for Government Affairs, to his transition team. Eric Schmidt, the former Google Chief Executive, has been a big fundraiser and is being talked about to lead a new technology industry task force in the White House. So why do we need these big names that are associated with Google and Facebook to be on the transition team? Like, what is the purpose of them being there? Not only are these individuals that are associated with Google and Facebook on the transition team, but there's also a lot of people associated with our intelligence that are a part of the transition team. So this is from a thread by Kevin Gosztola. So Kevin Gosztola, he is a journalist for Shadowproof. He did a fantastic job reporting everything that was going on with the Julian Assange trial, the hearing, just a couple of weeks ago. So he writes, the Biden-Harris transition team released names of people who are on their agency review teams, which will prepare Biden and his cabinet for their administration. Let's examine some of the individuals who are notable because of their backgrounds. Matt Olson. Matt Olson is former Obama administration official. He was National Counterterrorism Center Director, briefly the NSA General Counsel, and Executive Director for Gitmo Review Task Force. Olson is volunteer for Intelligence Community Group. In 2018, Olson went to work for Uber as the corporation's chief security officer. Uber joined with other corporations and spent hundreds of millions of dollars to pass Prop 22 in California. It ensures drivers and couriers are exempt from minimum wage. And it goes on to talk about Olson and his ties to the national security divisions and other big corporations. Greg Volg is a partner for the McChrystal Group, which was founded by Stanley McChrystal, former commander of Joint Special Operations Command. He was the CIA head of station in Afghanistan. Vogel is a volunteer for Intelligence Community Group. It goes on to give more details about Vogel and what he's associated with. Then there's Eric Velez Villar. Spent 30 years at FBI and eventually was a senior executive for intelligence branch. He left to become head of security for Disney parks and resorts and protect corporations' sensitive information. He is volunteer for an intelligence community group. He also brings up Carmen Middleton, also has worked for Disney. She is a former deputy executive director of CIA. She was CIA's highest ranking Latina and showed women like her can destabilize the world in the name of American democracy too. Middleton is volunteer for Intelligence Community Group. Bob Litt is the former general counsel of the Office of Director for National Intelligence. He worked with James Clapper and was involved in U.S. intelligence response to Snowden's whistleblowing. Litt is volunteer for the Intelligence Community Group. So I'm going to have the rest of this thread here linked for you guys. It lists so many other names and how they're associated with intelligence. And also, these people have a history of trying to suppress workers' rights or policies that can help workers, like increasing the minimum wage or decreasing work hours, or preventing the coalescence of big, giant corporations. So is it a coincidence that a lot of the channels that are being suppressed on YouTube, that are independent media, that challenge the system, that talk about socialist policies, that talk about increasing the minimum wage, that talk about regime change wars, that talk about civil liberties, and all these other socialist policies and programs that can benefit people's lives. These are programs that our intelligence and Google are really trying really hard to suppress because they want the mainstream narrative to persist in people's minds that these things are impossible, that these things are not pragmatic, that we can't have these things. We can't have free healthcare. We can't have $15 minimum wage. We can't have a Green New Deal or an OFF Act or policies that are going to benefit the environment, which in the end help us. So what is the connection here with Silicon Valley and intelligence? I'm going to play a clip for you guys from Caleb Maupin. He put out a video talking about Silicon Valley and its ties with Biden and Harris. He also wrote a book about Kamala Harris. So I'm going to play this clip and then we're going to discuss a little bit about it. And then I'll talk about some of the resolutions that were introduced in the House and how that relates to what we're discussing here.
Partly lies with CIA and NSA research grants for mass surveillance. The article goes into great detail about how there would not be a Google if there was not an NSA and a CIA. This is not tinfoil Hattie. This is not Alex Jones. But there's other information. You can read this article, The Secret History of Silicon Valley. The Secret History of Silicon Valley. Right? Goes into great detail about how the intelligence agencies and the government arranged for Silicon Valley to emerge and come into existence. Again, in case you don't believe me, this is Forbes magazine. Startups backed by the CIA. Talks about all kinds of startup companies funded by the CIA. Talks about how the Washington Post reported that in 2005 it received $37 million in funding from the CIA. It tends to invest roughly $500,000 to $2 million in any given company. There was an outfit called In-Q-Tel, which basically was a CIA company that, CIA funding that would invest in startup companies on Silicon Valley, tech companies. The CIA was in the business of setting up tech companies. This is Forbes magazine.
So Caleb goes into a lot of detail in the rest of the video. I highly recommend for you guys to check that out. But you see the connection here between Silicon Valley and our intelligence agencies. And I already brought up how it's all connected with suppressing information that talks about anti-imperialist programs and socialist programs that are going to benefit working class people, because this threatens their agenda. They want to profit. And also how it connects with how they're suppressing independent channels. This is stuff that's actually happening. You don't have to pull on a tinfoil hat to be believing this. Like this is actually happening. That's why people are moving over to Rockfin. That's why people are moving over to Odysee. And you can find some of my videos there. Odysee.com. All right, so you guys can see that, right? This is a resolution that was introduced into the House on October 20th, 2020. Was introduced by Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff, who was a big voice in alleging how Donald Trump was colluding with Russia, even though that ended up not being true. It ended up not being proven. So in section 1 and 2, they're trying to capture people by listing all these principles that most people would agree with about freedom of the press and how we need to protect journalists. We need to protect them from physical harm. And I want to read this one part that's here for you guys. So in section 2, findings, in this first paragraph here, they say, a free and independent press is necessary for citizens to make informed choices on issues of public concerns, to have the information necessary to recognize truth from falsehood, and to hold the powerful and the government officials to account. So it's saying we need to help people recognize what is true and what isn't true. So if you ask me what the best way to do that would be, is if we have more speech. Because if we have more speech, if someone is presenting false information, you can have somebody else write an article that's going to debunk that. And then people can see that article in its original form, how somebody was trying to deceive them, and then how somebody else put out a better documented article that debunks what that person said. That's thanks to more speech. If you hide that article that was trying to lie to you, you're not going to really understand why it was hidden, other than the government just told you that they had to do it. It's just we're not letting you see it because we're telling you so. We're telling you you can look at it. People need to understand why it's false. And the only way to do that is if you debunk it. More speech. So is that what's being proposed here in this resolution? So look at this. This is in section 4, paragraph 3 right here, exception. The president may waive the imposition of sanctions under paragraph 1 and omit foreign person from the list published in accordance with paragraph 2, or terminate such sanctions and remove a foreign person from such lists if the president certifies to the Committee of Foreign Affairs of the House of Representatives and the Committee on Foreign Relations of the Senate. So it says, adding on to that public identification of the individual is not in the national interest of the United States, including an unclassified description of the factual basis supporting such certification that contain a classified annex, or that appropriate foreign government authorities have credibly investigated a foreign person and, as appropriate, held such personnel accountable or perpetrating, ordering, or directing the acts described in paragraph 1, publicly condemn violations of the freedom of the press and the acts of described in paragraph 1, compiled with any request for information from international or regional human rights organizations with respect to the acts described in paragraph 1, compiled with any United States government request for information with respect to the act described in paragraph 1. So right there, they're talking about sanctions. This bill gives overall, it's very vague, the reasons for why the US wants to sanction countries. It gives very vague reasons for digital crimes. And it's also really hard to realize. And it makes Biden and the Secretary of State the determinators of which countries are committing digital crimes so that they can sanction those countries. So do you have trust in Joe Biden and whatever war criminal or warmonger that he chooses as Secretary of State? Joe Biden, who has never seen a war that he doesn't like. Joe Biden, who serves the multinationals who pay him, who donate to his campaign, and who have donated to him money to him for decades, and who's done a really good job of serving Wall Street and serving the insurance companies, serving the fossil fuel and oil lobby, and that's a reason for why he has never seen a war that he doesn't like. Is this somebody that you would trust to determine whether the information that you see is okay for you to look at? That right there is authoritative. It's not free speech. It's not freedom of information. Also, U.S. allies that are presenting false information, they're going to be waived. Like if it's the UK or Israel news, they're not going to suppress that. They're not going to censor that, because they're going to support whatever interest that the U.S. wants. So here's another bill that I want you guys to look at. It's HR 8636 to amend Section 230C of the Communications Act of 1934 to prevent immunity for interactive computer services, for certain claims, and for other purposes. It's also called the Protecting Americans from Dangerous Algorithms Act. So you guys can look at this bill for yourselves. I'm going to have it linked in the description of this video. But pretty much, the bill sounds like it wants to make it legal for our government to allow the internet to filter out results that they consider would be dangerous to the US public. So it's funny how everything they told us about China in grade school, about how China censors information, how they censor information from their public, the US wants to do the same thing. And they're using the same excuse that they would tell us that China uses for their public. Oh, that they just want to protect their citizens. The US wants to protect us from misinformation. How about you do a better job at informing us then? Therefore, we wouldn't be questioning you all the time. Instead, we have this sensationalist corporate media that all it really does is try to instigate drama within the American public by talking about Donald Trump and what he tweeted and what the Trump supporters are doing and what Black Lives Matter is doing, trying to pit us against each other and make us distracted and fighting amongst ourselves, talking about conspiracy theories like Russiagate, which was not proven, lying about the Syrian gas attacks when it doesn't align with the science conducted by the OPCW said. And the US already, they're already taking down sites. This is published on justice.gov. United States seizes 27 additional domain names used by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to further a global influence campaign. And I just want to point out here from this article what it says. These domains targeted a United States audience without proper registration pursuant to FARA and without notifying the American public with a conspicuous label that the content of the domain was being published on behalf of foreign principals, the IRGC, and government of Iran. Expect to see more of that once Biden becomes president. I don't doubt that we probably would have gone this under Trump too. I don't like either Trump or Biden. I don't want either of them as president. But what we're seeing is that the intelligence community and Silicon Valley, it appears like they preferred Biden over Trump. And we have people on the left, like Kamala Harris, like AOC, who are very, very much for censorship. It looks like there's a lot of very dark days ahead of us, but we're going to stay strong. We're all going to stay united. We're going to find alternative ways in which we can give you the news. You guys will find other ways for you to find information. And this is going to expose just how unfair and authoritative YouTube and Google and all of them are. More people are going to realize it. More people are going to see how unfair and ridiculous and authoritative this is. And I know you guys are going to play a big role in helping people realize that. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and stay informed.